So the 71 GMC needs some brake work, and we're starting with the master cylinder. So I'm going to show you the new Eastwood flaring toolkit that I have, plus a way that I've never used to bench bleed the master cylinder before. So let's get started. So whenever I buy a new project vehicle, the first thing that I do is the brakes. Now this one has a leaky master cylinder. The cap doesn't fit very tight, and I'm just not happy with the pedal feel of it. But before we get jumping into changing the master cylinder, I want to show you the Eastwood flaring toolkit that I have. I'm going to show you a few little details about it, some things I do and I don't like about it, but I'm also going to show you a way of bench bleeding the master cylinder that I've never used before. So we'll jump right in and I'll show you the Eastwood kit first. So in the instructions, there is a couple of different ways on how to bench bleed the master cylinder. Now, the most common way, and the way I've used tons of times before, is take the plugs that they provide you, throw them in there, tighten them down, and then fill the master cylinder full of fluid, cycle the piston, and you bleed the air out of the master cylinder assembly itself. The other way that they show in the instructions is by creating a couple of tubes that go where the plugs would go, or the lines go from the distribution block in the brake system, and plumb them up into the master cylinder. I've never done this way before, but now that I have a good flaring tool kit, I'm going to make my own tubes and double flare them so I can make this new way or different way of bench bleeding the brakes that I've never tried before. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create the tubes, and I'll show you how they create them with the Eastwood kit, and I'll give you some thoughts along the way of what I do and don't like about it. Now, before we get started on the actual kit itself, I need to tell you that this channel is sponsored by Eastwood. However, they do not give me product. They don't give me any free samples. They don't give me any tools for free. Everything that you see that I use Eastwood has been paid for out of my pocket. No discount. No, like I said, nothing free. So even though the channel is sponsored by it, I pay for all these tools myself, and that's why this review is my review only. It is not dictated by anything that Eastwood has done. Now, this is a standard flaring kit, so it makes the bubble flare, the doubles, the quick connects, all of the nice flares that you need for brake lines, fuel lines. It's a nice kit. This one is a little bit more than some of the smaller ones because it has more flares that you can create with it, but I wanted this one because it had the ability to do the double flare, which obviously is most important in the brake system, but I also wanted to use the quick connect stuff that GM uses. So this kit is a little bit more than the other ones. If you just want a good hydraulic kit that makes double flares, you can buy some. They're a little bit cheaper. This one was a little bit more money because it had more flares that you could create within it. So that's the reason why I bought this kit. Now I'm going to make a double flare here, and I'm not going to really go through the step by step. There's hundreds of videos out there on how to make a double flare with these types of kits, with other type of cheaper, $30, $20 auto parts store type ones. At the end of this video, I'm going to link you to another channel's video on how to make flares and some good little tips and some reminders of it. I'll leave a link to that up above here, like I said, towards the end of the video. But what I want to talk about is the things that I do and don't like about this kit. What I like about it is it gives all of the dies needed for those three types of flares that I want to make. Now, the single flare I don't think is that critical. I don't know of a single instance that I would ever use a single flare, but it's available because the dies are there. The double flare and the bubble flare and the quick connect are also a big part of the reason why I bought this kit. Now, here's a couple of things I like about it. Obviously, it has all the pieces that need to make those flares. What I don't like about this compared to another big brand name of hydraulic flaring tool that I have used in the past and that I used to own the kit is The Eastwood Kit feels very similar to it. It has a really good action on the pump. It has a really good solid locking mechanism for the clamp to hold the tubing into place. The dies are very high quality, it seems. I guess we'll know as we go along. What I don't like about it is the way that the fixture to hold the tubing sits within the device. I think, and I'm going to be a little critical here, but I think I would probably shim the opposite side just a hair. Now, we're talking very, very minimal here, but I don't know that based on the samples that I tried to make here that the fixture actually centers it onto the die. I had a little bit of trouble with it, and a lot of this goes by feel, and the Eastwood one I think takes a little bit more practice than the other brands that I've used and the other big brand that I used to own. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't make a good flare. I'm just saying it's going to take you a little bit more practice, and it did take me quite a few times. I think I made 5 or 6 of these before I really got a good double flare that I liked. So keep that in mind. Now, the other kit that I'd used in the past, it's the same way, but I think I got a better handle of it a little quicker with that brand. Again, not to say that it's the best and the easiest to use and that every flare you're going to make is perfect. No, you have to get a little bit of feel for it. And certainly the Eastwood one, I think, takes a little bit more patience and a little bit more time. Maybe if that fixture felt a little bit more centered within the clamp there that holds it in, I think I'd be a little bit more comfortable with it, and maybe you would be able to do this a little bit quicker. But again, I don't think it's a quality issue. I think it's just you need to get a better feel for it. Now, if that's out of the way, I'm going to tell you a couple of things I really like about this. The action on the pump feels like a kit that I've used before that was a very professional one, plus the other brand that I owned. It feels very, very similar to the several $1,000 professional mechanic one that I've used before. Very, very nice. The pump is very nice. The feel on how it's crushing into the to create the fitting feels very good. There's a lot of good feedback from it. So I was very impressed by that. This kit is quite a bit less expensive than the other brands that are on the market for these higher end hydraulic fitting maker or line makers. So that part was very impressive to me. And honestly, for the cost of what these are, that is probably the biggest thing that I liked about this kit, is it had that feel of those very, very expensive flaring tools. So that's a huge benefit in this. The other thing that I liked is, again, I like all the different dies that are in there, but it follows kind of like those very high-end kits. In making a double flare, there is 3 different dies that are used here, and I've seen some of the other cheaper ones that are a 2 die setup where you just flip the die and get one side for one of it, and then the other side creates the other thing you need. And I really like the fact that this one uses 3 different dies. Very, very nice, very, very complete kit. And here's a couple of nice close-up shots of creating that double flare. The first one is when you create the bubble side of it, and then the next step to collapse it to make the double flare. Again, very, very nice. The only issue that I have is just how that die is clamped in there, or the holding device is clamped in there. I would have liked to seen that a little bit more accurate, but other than that, again, I think that's more of a feel issue on this one. It is going to take you a few times. Now, the first attempt that I had here, I did screw this up and did have it in there a little bit shifted. I think it's because I over-tightened on the cylinder and didn't go by feel. So you'll get a little bit of feel for it. It's not complicated, but it's going to take you a few times to get this right, and certainly it did for me too. But beautiful double flare. So now kind of part 2 of this. after I created some and learned how to create a good double flare with it, then it was just taking a section of the tubing and creating it and bending it to get these to bend down into the master cylinder, into the well that holds the fluid. I like the way this looks already. I think it's going to be maybe a little bit better. I don't know. I've never really had that big of an issue when bench bleeding master cylinders. I've always felt like they've bled in the brake system fairly well. But I kind of like the way this is looking. These weren't overly complicated to make. Once I got the understanding of how the fittings went and how the dies went in there and the feel on the hydraulic pump, I can create dies now within probably a minute and a half. Very, very simple. So that's all we did, and then I just bent these up to create the hoses back into the reservoir here. So now that we have these created, we're going to pop over to the bench and just kind of see how this different style, for me anyway, how it works. And once we got this over to the bench, it was just a matter of setting the fittings in there just to make sure we got the right fluid going to it, and everything is set up. I'm not going to really go into how to bench bleed a master cylinder. Again, there's hundreds of YouTube videos out there on it. There's no reason to see another one on it. If you want me to do another video on it, I'd be more than happy to, but there's tons of them out there. What I wanted to see is just this difference in how this setup looked compared to what I'm used to using, and that's the plug style. So all in all, once we created these, hoses into there, I kind of like it, but I can also see a little bit of a pitfall here, whereas with the plug style, once you are done bench bleeding these, you can pop the cap on it, and it's a little bit easier, safer to transport it over to the vehicle, once you get the old master cylinder off, and maybe it's a little bit easier way to transfer it. So I guess I kind of dig this style because you can maybe get a little bit different view of how the air, comes out of there and which side it comes out, whether it is up through the tube or down through the, little port that's in the bottom of it. But I don't think I would ever do this again. And that main reason is exactly that. You can't put the cap on it and transport it without spilling fluid. And I noticed that right away as soon as I, went to take this out of the the vise, and it's full of fluid. Well, it's just not a good idea. So again, I like the method. I like the visual of it. It makes for good video, I guess. But in all reality, I probably wouldn't use this way again. So anyway, it's a lesson learned for me. Maybe you guys have done this before. If you've had better results or you got a better way with it, leave a comment down below. I'd like to hear about how you guys do it. And if you've used this method, why you like it or why you don't like it. So again, it's just bench bleeding. It's not complicated, but again, I like the visual of it, but yeah, there's too many negatives in it, and I just didn't like it. So really what it boils down to here is I really do like this kit. This was a replacement for another brand that I had that was stolen from me quite a few years ago, and I've just been too irritated to replace it. But I had need for it. I wanted to try out that different style of bench bleeding the brakes, and figured what the heck, with the sponsorship with Eastwood now, I went ahead and bought this one off their website, and I'm very happy with it. Again, you're going to have to spend a little bit more time with this one on learning the setup of the tool, the feel on the pump to get the right flare and not over flare it. But other than that, I think for the money spent, the what it will do and the different flares that this one creates, and it is quite a bit less than the other brand out there, I think this one's a home run. Had I used this of somebody else's, would I buy one for myself? Absolutely, 100%. So I'm glad I made the investment, glad I have it. It is going to be a very well needed tool in my toolbox. So again, just be prepared for a little bit of time with it, but I think I spent probably a total of maybe 45 minutes making 5 or 6, maybe 7, different tests to get a good double flare, and then after that I was off to the races. I created those 2 lines pretty quickly. So anyway, I just wanted to show this to you. I wanted to try out that different style of bench bleeding. I figured out that I hated it, so we all learn something new every day, so that was kind of cool. If you got any questions about the Eastwood kit, don't hesitate, leave them down below. I will leave a link to the Eastwood site. If you click through that, obviously that is where my sponsorship comes from, and I'd certainly appreciate that if you're going to do any shopping to click through that link to get there. So anyway, again, if you have any questions about the bench bleeding and why that different style, I'd be happy to answer any of those questions as well too. So anyway, I hope you guys got something out of this. If you did, please leave me a thumbs up. I always do appreciate that. And if you got any comments, obviously I always love getting those as well. I try to answer every single one of them. So anyway, that's it. I will catch you guys on the next video, and hopefully we'll do the actual bleeding of the brakes. I'll show you that process on the GMC sometime soon. We'll see you later.